Predator Badlands had the greatest opening weekend at the box office ever in the whole galaxy, universe, Milky Way, multiverse. At least that's the impression you'd get if you've been listening to one of the 18-year-old Redditors that have suddenly and coincidentally developed a massive Predator fetish. So how is the movie actually doing, and where does it look like it's gonna end its cinematic run? Well, let's just have a look, shall we? Hi everyone, it's Az here from HeelvsBabyface. This weekend just gone was the opening weekend for Predator Badlands, or as we dubbed it yesterday on the real BBC, Predator Midlands. It was, in my eyes, a pretty bad film. I've got a review up on the channel right now if you want to go check it out. To me, it wasn't a Predator movie, and it was Disneyfied to the point that it was essentially made for girls, which is every single Disney movie now. Even when they take masculine brands or male brands, they have to Disneyfy it. They have to turn it into a girl's brand. Because, of course, we all know the tens, no, that's where it ends, of female Predator lovers out there. But that's just my opinion. People, of course, are entitled to theirs. But when it comes to the box office, I try and be as an objective as possible in regards to whether or not I think the movie's going to be a hit, how much the movie costs in terms of its production budget, and therefore how much does it need to make back to become profitable. So this is where things get a little bit tricky with Predator Badlands, because if you've listened to the social media hype around it, it had an amazing weekend, projected to do 60 million worldwide. It actually ended up doing around 80 million worldwide. So surely this is a colossal success beyond all imaginable recognition. But if we actually look into the numbers here, and we look into like-for-like movies, then maybe this run for Predator Badlands isn't going to be as profitable as people might imagine. So let's have a look at some numbers, shall we? Predator Badlands opened to the biggest opening of any Predator movie, taking 40 million in its opening weekend, which beat Alien vs. Predator, which opened up with 38.3 million for its opening weekend. Back in 2004, 21 years ago, if this number is adjusted for inflation today, that 38.3 becomes around about $65 million. And the last time I checked, 65 million was a lot bigger than 40 million. And the reason why I bring things like this up is because they like to play very loose with the numbers game. This number's bigger than that, but they don't actually put the context. For instance, Predator Badlands is also the highest budgeted Predator movie of all time, coming in at $105 million, which apparently in Disney terms is rather conservative. And I will just mention briefly that it also came out in more theaters than Alien vs. Predator, and the ticket prices today are much higher than it was back then. So more tickets were sold back then as opposed to less tickets being sold now. But that's just by-the-by stuff. So the first thing that we need to establish is how much does Predator Badlands have to make at the box office to break even, so that everything after that is essentially profit. Now, remember, this is not an exact science, but we can get a very good idea indeed. So with a $105 million production budget, we just double that because there's approximate 50-50 split between the production company and the theaters. So there's 210 million right there. And then, of course, there is the marketing budget, which we don't know. Now, the marketing budget tends to be around half of the production budget, but let's be very generous in this case and add 40 million so that we can get a nice round number of about $250 million to break even. So with making $80 million in its opening weekend, that looks good, right? Right? Now, there's many things to take into consideration here. The first one being, is there any competition? Well, this week there isn't, so Predator Badlands has got a nice run all through the week at #1. Then, this coming weekend, the Running Man remake comes out, because everything's a bloody remake or a sequel or a prequel or a dequel. And the week after that, there's Wicked. And Wicked is likely going to take quite a bit of the box office away, whereas The Running Man probably isn't. And then not long after that, there's Zootopia 65, or whichever sequel is coming out for that, which again is most likely going to be a popular film and pull money away from Predator Badlands. Just a little saving grace is this is a PG-13 Predator movie because it's made for girls. So at least there's an opportunity for more of an audience to still go see it instead of it being an R-rated one. Another thing to look at is how strong is the international audience. Now you can see here that the international audience, because the domestic also has the Monday attached, is actually keeping pace with the domestic, and they both came in at approximately 40 million each this weekend, which, if you go according to that rule, looks like it will keep pace 1 for 1 throughout the course of the box office run, give or take a little bit of leeway here or there. So now let's bring up a movie that is very similar, shall we say, to Predator, Alien Romulus, which came out approximately a year ago. And how well did that do at the box office that will give us some indicators as to how well Predator Badlands will do in its box office run. So here are the box office figures for Alien Romulus, and it ended its run with about $350 million. Now, if the same was to happen to Predator Badlands, then the film walks away with about $100 million profit, which would be fantastic. Nothing to be sniffed at all. However, there's significant differences here and alarming similarities as well. Now, you can see with Alien Romulus that its international take is significantly higher than its domestic take. And this is the concerning element, because Alien Romulus actually opened slightly better than Predator Badlands, taking 42 million domestically in its opening weekend. And even if we factor in the Monday on top of that, then Predator Badlands only took just over $100,000 more on the Monday than Alien Romulus. So it was actually the international audience that really propped up Alien Romulus. And at the moment for Predator Badlands, the two are tracking 1 for 1. So if that trend was to continue here, then you can see that Alien Romulus loses steam around about the 30-ish day mark, and it only makes another $5 million in the next 40 odd days. And that's likely due to the fact that there's massive amounts of competition now at the box office and therefore pulling them away from the theaters. But whereas the international prop this up, if this trend was to continue with Predator Badlands, then its international would also be very similar to 105 million, and therefore it would end its box office run at around about 210 million, as opposed to Alien Romulus's 350 million. Now, I believe that Predator Badlands is going to hold up a little bit better domestically than Alien, and so I expect its run to be around about the 220 to 270 mark. And as you can tell, a fair chunk of that is under what the movie needs to make to break even. So suddenly that 80 million worldwide box office for Predator Badlands tends to pale when you look at the 108 million that Alien Romulus made only a year ago. And Alien Romulus was also an R-rated movie in the States, 15 rated here in the UK, whereas Predator Badlands holds that PG-13 rating and can therefore theoretically generate more of an audience. And with some very strong competition only a week or two away, I think it's going to really struggle. I think this movie might make its money back. Hell, it might just irk out a tinsy-wincy little bit of profit, but that doesn't bode well for sequels, particularly with the laws of diminishing returns. So is this the win that social media is trying to make it out to be? Well, the numbers aren't pointing in that direction, but let's see how it holds up. I'll see you in the next video. You take care. Goodbye, Baloo Boo.